Okay, let's start another day. Start with the same old LeetCode. Let's see what we have in store today. Equal sum grid partition 1. You are given a matrix grid of positive integers. Your task is to determine if it's possible to make either horizontal one or vertical cut such that each of the two resulting subsections is formed by the each of the two resulting sections formed by the cut is non-empty, and the sum of the integers, sum of the elements in both sections are equal. So there's two conditions. So return true if such partition exists, otherwise return false. So it's a boolean. Okay, 2 plus 1 3 on the grid such that each one of the two is non-empty and the sum of the element in both section is equal. So if we have any one null value, non-empty, so grid dot length could be 10, 100,000. Same for length. I and j is between 1 and 10 raised to power 5, so it is non-empty. I mean, it's given it's non-empty, so for okay. So should we, what if there were 3 by 3 and if there was a 4 by 4, and is it always even? The length will given a rate of positive integers. Your task is to have one horizontal or vertical cut. So horizontal cut means for, okay, so horizontal cut means row 1 sum, like row sum versus rest of the sums, right? And vertical cut means column 1 sum versus the rest. Okay, so for each row, what if we have, if we count, is it gonna be too big of a task, or do we keep a running sum? What if we went how would we do this? Task is to determine if it's possible to make either one horizontal or one vertical grid such that some of the elements in both sections are equal. So if we have, let's say if we keep the sum of each row in, so for each row, that's like too much. For each row, if the sum is equal to, there are two types of cut, yes, that's what I'm thinking too. But okay, let's get our teacher. That's the number of rows equals to grid dot length. Okay, and integer columns equals to grid bracket 0 dot length. Integer array row, if this sums equals to new integer array of size m, and integer array, let me save it all in a list. Column sums equals to new integer array of n. So like, let me index teacher index equals to, let me have the index 0 for adding, looping all the rows first. The rows for teacher I equals to 0, let me have it 2 equals to 0, and r must be less than number of rows. If this, like there's two rows, r 0 and 1, that's correct. R plus plus, and what do we want? What we want to have is, and for each row and teacher, do we have another loop for columns to get, and for, let's see, integer column equals to 0, and column must be less than what number of columns, n is equal to column plus plus, 1 second. Okay, so what do we have? Index bracket, oh sorry, row sums bracket r, so the first row plus equals to, for each rows and column, for each row index equals to bracket r equals to, how do we calculate the sum of each column? Equals to grid bracket, let me have column 1 equals to row sum bracket index equal to, oh okay, so we have, for each row we want to count the values, the total value in each column. For each row, for each column, let me start the column at 0, length of column is 2, and sum the values in column. And what would that be? That would be grid bracket and column plus equals to 1. We have integer sum equals to 0, sum plus equals to this. So for the first value, sum is equal to this, and row sums bracket r equal to sum. No, so what will happen here is the first loop for each, it will count the first column. Okay, right, arc 0 comma 0 0 comma 1. Okay, and now do we have adding all the columns teacher sum. Let me have another called sum2 equals to 0. And now here we want to loop vertically for integer column equals to 0. Well, again, row equals to 0, r must be less than. Let me start with columns. Integer, if it's a 3 by 2, integer r 0, r must be less than rows 0, column must be less than. We have another variable for the loop, row must be less than row r plus plus. We want to have some vertically, right? Some vertically, that would be sum2 plus equals to red bracket column bracket row. So 0 comma 1 0 comma, let me do this. There's 1 second, let me take my pen and paper. So if it's let's say if there were, it's a number of rows is 2 and column is 3, so first row would be 0 1 1 0. So we want our rows to change, right? Yeah, so that would be row bracket column, that's correct here. And then we would add column sums bracket column equals to sum2. So for each column I've added and then should we reset the sum here? Sum equal to 0, because I don't want it to sum2. So after the loop ends, I want to reset the sum for the next iteration. Okay, now we have an integer array of both vertical and horizontal, and now we have to see if if sum of, let me think, is this correct so far? Let's see. Okay, this is what I have done so far. Is it on the right track? You declared rows and column. Oh yeah, so one mistake I did. It should be number of rows and number of columns. Okay, missing semicolon grid. Okay, some text mistakes. Right now you're computing individual row sum and individual columns, but the cut needs. Right now what we're doing is computing individual row sum, but the cut needs a prefix sum versus the remaining sum. Example for the horizontal cut after row 1 is top is 5 plus 7 12, and bottom is compute the total grid sum. Okay, so pseudo horizontal total sum equal to sum of all cells. So you mean we through horizontal sum array and vertical one get the total and then compare the prefix and suffix. Okay, so another thing we could do is, instead of having another teacher total sum of all the rows, sum all rows equal to 0, rows plus equal to sum, so we keep a track of all the rows, and integer of the total sum should be same for rows and columns, right? Total sum, so we have a sum of all the values. Okay, so now for I equals to 0, check okay, checking cuts. Okay, so now check horizontal equals to 0. Okay, and so running sum, what do we have? We have a loop for teacher I equals to 0, I must be less than row sum dot length, which should be equals to rows. I should be less than rows, but minus 1 because we don't want to go past the last row. And I plus plus, what do we want to do? We want to check running equals to running plus equals to, we have to check if the running sum is equal to total sum minus the running. If yes, then we have returned true. The loop for teacher I equals 0, I must be less than columns minus 1, I plus plus, same thing, run plus equals to column sums bracket I, and if run equals to total sum minus running. Seems redundant. No, we have the same line of code here. Let's see if we can return true, else we return false. Okay, logic is correct. Remove this. I have a random int where, oh, this line is random int, it's gone. Reset running. Oh, yes. Another, finally some column traversal is memory. Row is equal to grid or length. Okay, for int teacher value, total sum for each row in grid teacher value. Okay, this will get the total value. I see. I will submit this, but it's probably not going to be as optimized. Okay, so let me reset it. Let me paste this one. So, okay, total sum, horizontal cuts, vertical cuts. Okay, maybe there's index teacher. So in this line, just change the long. Okay, instead of integer, that's all the sum. Let's change it to long. Total plus equals to value, long prefix, long row sum. I think that's probably what it is. Long column sum. Okay, let's try again. Okay, how did the first guy do it so fast? What's happening here? Using long for some is correct smart instead of checking condition. Okay, from what I can tell, I have an array of row sum, and for int I in row sum dot length, correct dot length, teacher I plus I. So you're only following up until n and grid I. Okay, so we have the sum here. Okay, I think this is, I'm gonna check on it later. Okay, I'll see you again.